fights with passion, and he inspires.
Are you ready for a war?
All right, welcome back to From 8 Arbitration. I got two gentlemen with me today, Rob and Calvin. Both they're from Build a Fighting NALC, and y'all know well about that movement. I support that movement 100%. And y'all have heard Tyler Vassar. He's been on here several times. They made a statement at the National Convention, gained nothing but respect from that. Took on the establishment. So I have nothing but respect for those people in Build a Fighting NLC to see them go up against the establishment like that. They've got big plans for the future. I know Mike Cariff has his national Zoom today. I think Tyler's going to be on that, representing them. But Rob and Calvin, this is your show, man. Whatever y'all want to talk about, it's all yours. And if I want to say some stuff at the end, I will. But it's all yours, guys. So whoever wants to go first, Rob or Calvin, y'all have at it, man.
All right. Thank you, Brother Corey. Appreciate it. Thank you for having us on. Yeah, like Corey said, we're from Build the Fighting NALC. My name's Calvin Rich. I've been a letter carrier for 7 years now, shop steward, area steward, and current vice president of Pasadena branch 2200. And the reason why we came on here today is our branch had a contract rally on August 25th. I know Brother Corey gave us a shout out about information with that, so really appreciate that, because in our view it was a successful rally. It was organized locally here by our branch and energized by the Build the Fighting NALC movement. We had a few special guests, Vice President James Henry, past president of Branch 1100 Charlie Miller, Rob the Rock Kean was on there from Branch 2902, my brother here. But yeah, Rob, did you want to introduce yourself before I keep talking?
Yeah, sure. So like Calvin said, my name's Rob. I'm a CCA out in Tri-Valley Branch 2902 and on Build a Fighting NALC. Yeah, there you go.
All right, cool. Yeah, so
quick and easy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, kind of to segue from that and how I know Tyler and Rob from the BFN and how long I've been working with them was I got introduced to From 8 Arbitration and Corey by my T6. I got to give him a shout out. Mark Maw, he has since transferred to Virginia, but just want to give him a shout out because I don't think I'd be here if it wasn't for him. And back in April, when I heard Tyler Vassar on From 8 Arbitration, I do like little cleaning here and there at home when I put on the podcast, and I heard Tyler on there and instantly resonated with me, what his message was, what he was saying, what he wanted to do with the movement and reforming things with the NALC. I had been a union rep for about 4 years now. I'm a table 2 carrier, and I got in it because I care about the letter carrier. I wanted to represent my office and my members in my branch. Our office hadn't had a shop steward in over like 30 years when I took over there. And, listening to Corey's podcast, it's been real helpful with my education in making sure that I provide the best representation I can provide. And when I ran into Tyler on there, I immediately, emailed his president in Branch 9, and I reached out and I said, hey, I'm interested in doing what you guys are doing with the open bargaining up there in Branch 9, and I want to do the same thing in Branch 2200. And fast forward, I'm helping the BFN, I'm a part of the BFN and wanting to adopt, the ideas in my branch, and shout out to my president, Rob Karchikian, because he's been real helpful. I'm just the vice president. I'm part of the e-board and all that stuff, but they've really welcomed these reform ideas in my branch, and it's helped our success of what we've seen here with passing the open bargaining resolution, going against the SNDCs that, the post office is implementing their 10-year plan, having this contract rally on August 25th that, our branch hadn't organized a contract rally in over 10 years. So when we did this, I felt like really we weren't starting from scratch, because Tyler and Rob really presented I guess what we call it, the blueprint with having a successful rally, and so they were there the entire time, and overall it was a success due to that. But I guess I would say the main message that I want to pass on, and that I passed on at the contract rally that we had in Pasadena, was that the BFN, endorses contract rallies like the one we had, and like the one that, Region 3 business agent Mike Cariff, he's calling on those contract rallies today for at his national rep session, and trying to do them on October 14th on Columbus Day. We endorse that, we support that, and we would certainly out here, at least in Region 1 with Rob and I, we're not too far from each other here in California, and we would definitely support Southern California branches if that's what they wanted to do, and we would encourage them to do so. We can help provide them whatever it is, they need, and whatever we can in that sense of what a contract rally is. So yeah, that's all I have for now. Rob, you want to go ahead, brother?
Yeah. I think the contract rally was fantastic. Like Calvin said, it was the first in over 10 years. And, you could kind of tell, it was myself was the first time me speaking at an NALC event. As I mentioned, I'm a CCA. I've attended a couple of union meetings. Obviously, I've listened to the podcast. I've been involved in helping to build BFN with Tyler Vassar. But, it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning, baby. That's the important thing when we're talking about these rallies and their importance. It's a way to organize. It's a way to revive the tradition of collective action that the NALC needs. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about how to transform the NALC. We're used to going to work, people file grievances, people get involved in the union, but coming together, organizing together, making our voices heard, that's the essence of what we need to move forward to build the Fighting NALC. And I think these rallies on the 14th are an excellent opportunity for anybody listening here to start that process in your own branch, in your own station, of being an organizer. I know it's scary, especially to if you haven't talked about this kind of stuff. If maybe you're not an activist. I've got a long activist background. I still get nervous. It's tough, when you make that first step, talking to your coworker, like, hey, let's actually do something. But that's why Calvin and I, Tyler, all the other members of the BFN coordinating committee, that's the purpose we hope to serve between now and those rallies, is to help you. And with that in mind, we were very focused on the convention. We were very focused on open bargaining. We've had some time to process, also to focus on developing a website, which hopefully should be live by today. That'll have resources, a Google Doc with all kinds of things that you can use to help build a rally yourself. It'll have contact information. We'll finally have an official email address, so it's not just Tyler's personal email and phone number. He gets blown up. He's constantly messaging me. He's like, oh my God, all these people are calling me. So, we are starting to build out our capacity, and it is just the beginning, because the skills you learn, the relationships you build, organizing, again, collectively, proactively, those skills can apply to battling against the mismanagement on the workroom floor, dealing with safety issues, anything else. So this is just the beginning. It was a great rally. Really, again, just want to underline, great to have James Henry from the CLC out there speaking. Great to have Charlie Miller. Great to have Surratt, and especially all the carriers who showed up. And if you're one of those carriers who showed up and signed up, because we had sign-up sheets, Calvin and I are going to reach out and organize a meeting, because we want to help build this rally on the 14th. So we'll be reaching out to you. But yeah, no, fantastic. Very glad I got to speak at it. And yeah, it's just the beginning.
Yeah, I love that you say that, because so many people, when they're looking at the national convention, Rob, see the BFN go up there, fight their ass off. The establishment comes down, business agent after business agent after business agent going after these young bucks, like I say, in the BFN. Rich has 7 years. You're a CCA. Tyler Vassar, hasn't been here too terribly long. Hell, I've been here 32 years. But it is just the beginning, and that's what everybody needs to understand, especially the Build of Fighting NALC. It's an embarrassment that Build of Fighting NALC it has to exist to me. As somebody who's been here 32 years, as somebody who's been a shop steward since 2006, an advocate since 2012, that my union has let us down so much that we have to have a group of young people say, hey, y'all aren't doing your job. You're not doing your job. You're not representing us. And so we're going to pick up that mantle. We're going to do it ourselves. That's an embarrassment to me. I love your movement and I'm behind it 100%. But the fact that y'all had to do that to me is an embarrassment, that our union has fallen so far that I've got a CCA I'm talking to right now and a carrier with 7 years that I'm talking to right now saying we need to get out in the streets and do more. The convention, you look at the old fights, 12 rounds, 15 rounds back. I'm a huge fight fan. That was round one. This is a long fight that we're in. We've got 11, 12 more rounds to go. And so round one, y'all represented yourself very well from those older carriers like myself. Extremely impressed with what y'all did. Like I said, to see Tyler stand in the face of that, extremely impressive. And so this rally that y'all had, you see all these people that were out there. I'm glad that James and Charlie were out there to help with that and to be present with that. I think it's going to take more of those old heads to say, hey, we need to embrace this movement. We need to get behind this movement. Activism, we're lacking that. And here y'all come. We're activists. We're going to start changing things. You want more people in your movement? That's exactly what you have to do. You have to get out on every single thing that you can get out on, whether it's from aid arbitration or Mike Karras thing, and just be out in the forefront. And it will make it easier for y'all to talk to those people on the workroom floor because, y'all making a lot of noise right now. So what's the next thing for Build a Fighting NALC? We have the thing on Columbus Day. Is that what you said?
Yeah, Columbus Day. That'll be the next.
You've
next
got
big
that.
thing.
And so what's the next step for Build a Fighting NALC? We're going into round two. So what is it?
Round two is building it out.
Yeah.
Before when we were focused on the convention, we were organizing monthly Zoom meetings, getting branches together. We got over 40 branches to pass the open bargaining resolution. That we saw that as a step. We saw it as round one, and we understood that if we are going to transform the NALC, what that's going to require is, not just a loose group. Right now we're a loose group, and that's how things have to start. But what we want are BFN chapters. We want people to take up, if you agree with the program of BFN, if you agree with our methods, our vision for what a real fighting union, a militant union looks like, that's based on a broad layer of militant union activists. That's the key thing for me in my understanding of what it takes. We've got hundreds of lions right now, like yourself, Corey, people in the CLC. And you talk about the old heads, the older lions. They need to help a new generation, a broader generation of lions. And there's tons of people looking for something to do. They may not have experience, but they're looking around and they've seen CLC, they've seen ourselves, they've seen Mike Karras. And right now, I think all of us are in this stage where we're trying to build out our capacity, trying to reach them. But the second step is related to these Mike Karras rallies. We want people to begin organizing those, get their feet wet, organize a rally, because again, those are the kind of skills that we're looking for. That's what we need. We need people who can talk to their coworkers, can convince them of the necessity of it. And of course, we're going to reach out. I mean, if you want to get involved in any way, shape, or form, if you can't organize a rally for whatever, we'll still reach out to you. You're still a part of this movement. But I think that's the next step. and it's going to take time to build out. I mean, we're going to get a website going on. We're going to hopefully expand the coordinating committee. But now it's about going national. And if you want to get involved, if you want to build this thing, hopefully by this episode, we'll get the website link up, but just hit there, reach out to Tyler, myself on Facebook, but we are going to make this thing national. I mean, even if we get a good contract, like you said, there is a long fight ahead of us. You know, I mean, I talked to Teamsters. They got a pretty good contract. Management's gone on a huge offensive on the workroom floor. If we get a decent contract, I think we'll expect the same thing. There's the looming threat of privatization as well. So if you're getting involved in this fight, I would encourage you to take that long view, like Corey just put it. But I want to put it back to Calvin. Maybe you got some thoughts there as well.
Yeah. I just wanted to kind of, I forgot to say something, because at the contract rally we had in Pasadena, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Concerned Letter Carriers group, the CLC, because they were out there in full force. I got to commend them, because there were members who came out from San Diego out to Pasadena. They traveled hundreds of miles. Shout out to President Ricardo Guzman from Branch 70 in San Diego. We had Brian Riggs from Branch 2502, Las Vegas. He came out there. He drove from Las Vegas. He was out there in the crowd, and a lot of members from other branches. We weren't really sure what to expect when we did this contract rally, because we hadn't done one in a while. But the one thing that I did walk away real proud about afterwards was how engaged the membership was. And that's something that I would want to pass over to branch leaders here in Southern California, or anyone across the country that is thinking about doing this or is hesitating on doing contract rallies. And that's that the membership, the letter carriers, were real happy that we did this. They wanted to know what was the next step. Some were asking when the next contract rally was, that they wanted to go and continue to fight. And I think when you do stuff like this, when you do organizing events that involves the letter carriers, it really builds up your membership. It really builds up the letter carriers, and they feel as if they are important, because they are. We're union reps. We represent them. We're their leaders, but we work for the membership. And I think time and time again, I think sometimes we tend to forget that in some places. And we're a lot more powerful with the membership when they're activated. Like Rob said, when we have a militant NALC, and you can't have a militant NALC without the membership, without the letter carrier. So that's definitely what I wanted to say about that.
Yeah, I militant NALC, and I wish y'all knew my past business agent, Pete Moss. He was militant, and that's who kind of brought me up. I was a steward well before I became involved with the business agent's office. As a formal A, dealt with Lou Drass, who was extremely bright. But militant, Pete Moss was a militant business agent, and he could see kind of the writing on the wall where our union was going, kind of moving away from that. He was admonished a lot because of that, but he never gave up being militant. And so there are those out there. I see emails. Y'all probably do the same. People saying, hey, I was out of the game, but now I'm getting back in it because of what y'all are doing. This is how I remember my union being. It was militant. And there's nothing wrong with that. People are like, that's so scary. It's not. You want your union to be militant. Your carriers can come to work and feel safe and work in environments free of those managers or supervisors who choose to create a hostile working environment. They can do that because you have a militant union. Rob, when you're talking about the Teamsters saying that, management has kind of gone on the offensive. I say time and time again, when that happens, you need to meet these motherfuckers head on in the street. And that's what I mean, is that if I have a good contract and you have management come on that floor and they're going to say, hey, this or that as far as this new contract, meet these motherfuckers head on. And that's what a union to me should be. We should never concern ourselves with management. I do not. I don't concern myself with managers, supervisors, how they act. I don't concern myself with that because they don't bother me. As a militant union, that's how each shop steward will be. Because, like I've always said, managers, they never have the last say. That 8190, it will always have the last say in front of an arbitrator. That's where we put our case on. I'm not concerned about managers running their mouths, treating my carriers a certain way, because I will always have the last say, and that's with that 8190. A militant union understands that. They welcome that. And so, yeah, I appreciate the hell out of y'all's movement. Sorry about all that, but if you talk about a militant union, man, it pisses me off, Calvin and Rob, because my union is not like that any longer. If it was, we would not have a bill to fighting NALC. If it was doing its job, we would not have these movements popping up all over the country that are going crazy right now. I've never seen anything like it. All of these different movements, these podcasts coming up, it's because people are fed the fuck up, and they're embracing build a fighting NALC because these young kids have it. They understand it. They get it, what a union's supposed to be like. And so, yeah, you have those old lines, like you say, and eventually we'll go out to pasture. And y'all are going to be the future of this union. And when you talk about militancy, when you talk about activism, that's what I want to see my union. When I step aside, however many years from now, I want to know that it's in good hands. It's in better shape than when we left it, and that you got these young bucks that have come up through the ranks and are killing it, man, as far as bringing members together, getting them excited again about the union, excited about representation, excited about that fight. And it's coming back, you know, when you talk about it's just the beginning, you can see it's coming back. And so I didn't mean to talk so much. Rob, you got something you want to say?
No. I think that's great, brother. I couldn't agree more. And I think this is a good transition to talk about the next thing. I mean, you mentioned tasks for BFN. One of the tasks that Tyler and I, when he got open bargaining past the beginning of this last year, we said, you know, it's not just enough to build a militant union. We need to, well, in order to do that, we need to recapture our union's real history. And that, for us, starts with the 1970 strike. Now, yeah. Mr. Postal Inspector, if you're listening, relax. I'm talking about, we're going to try to get the right to strike. We're not calling on people to go on strike. So, you know, just want to put that out there first. But
they're listening.
I'm sure they are. And go ahead, listen, baby. I mean, I don't care. But you talked about how it's ridiculous that we have to have a build a fighting NALC movement. That, you know, we've got all these older carriers, all these older people been around who like, God, I remember when my union would fight. I remember when my union would fight. What happened to my union? Now what happened to it is a long story, but the importance of the 1970 strike, in my opinion, and I wrote an article on this. It'll be up. It should have come sooner. Tyler asked for an article. I wrote a pamphlet. I wrote 7,500 words, and we had to cut it back. So we're going to get that up there. But the most important thing that the 1970 strike shows, and as it relates to today, is the power of solidarity. Where does the power in the union come from? It doesn't come from a very, very smart president. Brian Renfro can talk. He probably knows more about the ins and outs of the union and the bylaws and this and that than I do, than, you know, maybe all of us do. But it doesn't come from that. It doesn't come from leaders who tell the members, wait on us. Wait, we'll deliver this great contract for you. Just keep waiting. Just keep waiting. Keep trusting us. That's how we're in the situation right now. 470 days plus without a contract. You know, inflation up 20%. You know, CCAs that I work with, I'm going to be working with in an hour, having to work 2 jobs, working the midnight shift, having to cut back on food. I had a CCA I worked with for a long time and only eat 2 meals a day. I'd have to give him half my sandwich, literally. That's the situation we're in. And if we did have the right to strike, we would have solved this problem with the strike. And I guarantee it would have solved this problem. It would have guaranteed us a contract. The 1970 strike, the union, there's good articles. There's really great material on YouTube. You go to the NALC YouTube page. There's great reporting and clips from the time, news reporters going on the picket lines, giving you a sense of the power, the energy, the solidarity, the courage it took to strike back then. That's the other thing. Back then, it was illegal like it is now, and you face fines up to $1,000 a day. There were letter carriers who had 20 years in, 30 years in, risking their pensions, and yet a strike that started in New York went across the country. And the reason it did was because letter carriers across the country had faith in each other. They had faith in each other. They were willing to fight for each other. They understood that united, we can overcome anything. I mean, you read, I recommend to people who are listening now a book called Undelivered by Philip Rubio. I don't know if Tyler or someone else has mentioned it before. It came out in 2020. It's a history of the NALC overall, but it focuses on the strike rightly, because I think that's the moment, not just when we won collective bargaining. Out of that strike, a whole generation of militants, Vincent Sobrato being the most well-known, and for good reason, I think, because he eventually helped build a rank and file movement, which we take inspiration from, was captured the presidency of the union. But in every station, I think this is what's missed. And this is why we wrote an article. I wrote a history. There's something missing from the official histories on either the NALC website or most articles. They point out the number of people who went on strike, its duration, the fact that it was the largest wildcat strike in history. But I think what is not given enough emphasis is the fact that in an age where there was no social media, where the national union at the time, led by James Rademacher, was actively trying to undermine the strike, and nearly at every step of it, letter carriers had to step forward in their stations. You talk about the spread of the strike, 200,000 people involved. What does that mean? It meant that in every station, there had to be one person or a handful of people who looked around their coworkers and say, hey, we're going to support our brothers and sisters in New York or in Chicago or in Philadelphia. They had to convince them. They had to overcome the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt, which, was totally justifiable. I mean, they'd never gone on strike before. It was illegal. People had families, people had all this stuff, but there was a core of militants who didn't know that they were even militants. They hadn't gone to union meetings. They weren't shop stewards. They weren't branch presidents. And that being said, there were plenty of branch presidents and stewards who played a good role. But there was a much wider layer of people who understood that I have to win this argument. And those arguments were had, by the way, not just in union halls. It wasn't like an orderly thing where every union said, okay, we're going to have a union vote, and then we're going to go on strike. It was spontaneous. People met on the workroom floor, in the break rooms, in bars, in parking lots, at people's houses. There's a plethora of stories, and in the article I go into more detail about them that really gets across just how creative the rank and file was. And that creativity, that courage, that potential exists today, not just in the NALC, in every union. Working class people are often told in so many ways, mostly implicitly, that, leave the thinking stuff, leave the creativity, leave that to other people. That's for another strategy. Your job is to carry mail and shut up. In my view, the working class, letter carriers in this instance, have the most potential power. That power exists. It's there. These contract rallies are a way to express it. If we had 1,000 contract rallies across the country, do people not think that would have an effect on these negotiations? We're about to go into an election. You think the government wants to have this contract unresolved just before an election where we're going to play a primary role in making that thing happen? The public is on our side. We have everything going for us. The thing that's missing is we have a leadership at National with Brian Renfro who views his role the same way that James Rademacher viewed his role in 1970. And it's documented. It's in this book. He viewed his role as, my job is to use these carriers as a bargaining chip. I'm going to say to George Shultz, the Secretary of Labor, to Nixon, and he did this. He went to the White House and said, give me some time. I'm going to try and beat them back. I'm going to try and force them to go back to work. When the strike started on a Wednesday, by that Friday, Rademacher had tried to go to the Executive Council and not just censure Branch 36, which was New York, where the strike started. It was sort of the beating heart of it. He didn't just want to censor them. He wanted to take them into receivership. He wanted to basically get them out of the union. And he did after the strike. In public, he would sometimes say things like, this is a good thing, but privately, he was always maneuvering against it. There's a quote by that same labor secretary, George Shultz, very famous in the labor movement, I think. He says, the only thing worse than a wildcat strike is a successful wildcat strike. Think about that. What does that mean? What is he getting at? What he's getting at is the only thing worse than a wildcat strike is when the members realize, because they take action, that they're the ones with the power. What does a conservative union do? What is a union that pushes members away from activity? And that's not the case in every single local or branch. I'm not stating that at all, but in general, that seems to be the case in NALC. That encourages a passive relationship between the members and the leaders. What are they doing when they're doing that? They are reinforcing their own position. If you cultivate a union where the vast majority of members are passive, inactive, you do everything you can to demoralize them, to make it difficult for them to get involved. I mean, when I got hired, I got a pamphlet about the strike. I got a pamphlet about the history of the union. Nobody told me my rights. Nobody told me how the grievance process works. Nobody told me how to get involved. That's a travesty. That's a travesty. We cannot expect, forget about the contract. We cannot expect to maintain this position. We cannot expect to move forward with an inactive membership, but it benefits the leaders. And that's why they do it. It's not coincidence. It's not coincidence. And in 1970, when 200,000 letter carriers and clerks all together came away, I mean, there were 5 or 6 different mail unions, there were all kinds of divisions. But in the heat of the struggle, those divisions were overcome, and the strength that was latent, that existed, but they didn't realize it, was realized. And through the course of that strike, again, that generation of Sombrado, et cetera, came into their own. They eventually took over the leadership of the NALC in the clerks at APWU. And that was the most important event, in my opinion, in the union's history. Now, obviously we're fighting for the right to strike. And, people might be thinking right now, well, I guess you're saying that we have to go on strike. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I want to focus on is it was the collective efforts. That spontaneous strike was determined by the thousands of lost to history, nameless people, again, in stations all across the country, who stood up. And if you want to stand up right now, the next step is to help build these contract rallies. And there will be more steps. And again, it's a long fight. It's a very long fight. Like Corey said, there's going to be many rounds to this thing. But we have to reclaim our history. And it goes beyond the 1970 strike. The NLC has a very rich history of which I am just beginning to gain an understanding, to gain some knowledge of. But our history is one that we should be proud of. The NLC has a very militant tradition. It has been lost. It has been sidelined. It has been pushed away. Renfro comes out in a YouTube video, says, everything's fine. Just wait another day, wait another week. We're tired of waiting, and we don't have to wait. We don't have to wait. So anyway, I'm going on for a bit, but there you go.
That's good. I love some of those points you're making. All of them are great, but I always say on here, Rob, never underestimate the power of you. And that's what I'm talking about, is the city letter carrier. It's all about the city letter carrier. Never underestimate the power of you, the power that you hold. We run all of these things. We run the workroom floor. We run this union, and we have been beaten back so bad. You saw a perfect example at the National Convention when Tyler gets up there with his motion. You see the establishment beating him back. That was the perfect example. I think this podcast is the perfect example. Everybody was on board. Here's this respected advocate, Corey. He knows a lot of people at National. He hobnobs with them and stuff. He starts this educational podcast telling people about how to do contractual things. But when he started educating people about the union and the missteps of the union and the union's inability to fight and represent, they turned their back on me. Problem is, I don't give a fuck about them. I care about the city letter carrier. That's it. And they never understood that. They never understood they're like, what are you doing? You're doing I was telling everybody about this podcast, about how you're educating, and you're attacking us. Yes, because you're not doing your job. And your job is to represent us with everything humanly possible. And you talk about this contract, the strike back in the 70s. What generated that? Wages, sub-level wages. We're not even making a working wage back then. Well, what's the difference now? Wages, working conditions back then. What's one of our biggest issues today? Working conditions. You couldn't melt your president and pour him out there on the streets when Brother Gates died. And I was going crazy about that. Let the public know about the working condition of the city letter carrier. That's the perfect opportunity. We had a brother die in the yard, and it's about working conditions. Get us out in the streets, man. Be a leader. How many episodes did I have about that? And this cat won't get out of his fucking office unless it's a photo op at one of these Enough is Enough rallies. He'll show up, fly in, get a photo of him holding his hand up, very symbolic, and then he'll be gone. It's a complete failure. And so, yeah, all those are great points, my man, but never underestimate the power of the city letter carrier. And I think that's what y'all are trying to do, is tell everybody, look, it all is on your shoulders. We carry all the weight of all of this. When you're talking about, I'm not calling for a strike. There's nothing wrong with talking about it. Talking about what that does, talking about the threat of that. You can't come on here and say, on October the 5th, we're going on strike. you know, I'm gonna edit that out if you do.
Oh, shoot, that was my next point.
But no, man, I am behind it 100%. I love the passion that y'all show. I love how y'all are getting this thing established, and y'all have free reign whenever y'all want to come on here, man, and talk to the people. Y'all are more than welcome to. You got an open invitation to do that. Do y'all have anything else y'all want to say before we get out of here?
Brother, do you mind if I say something?
Have at it, man.
Yeah, you talk about, I know you guys were talking about the establishment and how Tyler Vassar was up there at the Boston convention going up against them. And I'll say this about that, about the establishment and the BFN and the CLC, the Mike Carrots that are popping up, that, you'll continue to see a lot more of that. And there was a quote that I read the other day that I thought was fitting with that. And it says, it's not my quote. It says, "No army can withstand the strength of an idea whose time has come." And that is where we're at. There is absolutely no way that things will not change, but they will not change if we don't do anything about it. And that's what that's why I got involved with the BFN, and that's why I became a union rep, because I wasn't going to wait on the sidelines and wait for things to change. So if you believe in that and want to get involved, we welcome you with open arms at the BFN. In my branch 2200 out in Pasadena, California, I welcome those who want to become a shop steward, who want to educate themselves, who listen, who tell me and come up on the working floor and tell me, "Do you listen to From A to Arbitration?" And I smile and I say, "Oh yeah." And those conversations really push me to keep going. Working with Rob, I've been blessed, to work with him out here and have him so close to me. And I thank Tyler for putting me onto him and establishing this working relationship and just building a Fighting NALC. And I fully support the BFN. I fully support you, Corey, for the education that you are doing. JB too. I love him. Love hearing his episodes on education. I truly believe that at the core of all this is education. It's getting rid of the ignorance. When you get rid of that, when you read, when you educate yourself, you will free yourself. And that is in life and also on the workroom floor. The more educated members we have, the stronger we will be. And yeah, that's my message to everyone out there. So thank you for having me.
Calvin, the most important thing that we can offer is education. I say that all the time. The most important thing that we can offer our members is education about whatever it is education. Keep the members educated. A good point you made when Tyler was going up against the establishment, it wasn't just him. You know, all of the speakers and everybody took notice. It was the establishment against the craft. All of the people that were getting up speaking on behalf of this open bargaining were craft, going up against the establishment. And people took notice of that. And so y'all should embrace that it was the craft, it was the city letter carrier that was at the national convention going up against the establishment. We noticed that. You know, us old heads noticed that. We're looking around saying, hey, look at these young kids going up against the establishment for this open bargaining, for this bill to fighting NALC. And so you will win. You will win. I promise you that. Like we say, it's just the beginning, but you represented us well as far as us in light blue. And I want everybody to understand that listens to this podcast, that it was light blue going up against the establishment. It was the perfect example of that when y'all went up there for open bargaining. It was the establishment coming down with everything that they had. And y'all stood in the face of that. And so, hell yeah, I'm behind it, man. So, Rob, you got anything before we get out of here, baby?
I'll just make it quick. I couldn't put it better than what you and Calvin just said. We will win. James Rademacher and that old leadership that allowed those conditions to go on for as long as they did, they were overthrown. They were overthrown. They were replaced. They were overcome. They were overcome. Brian Renfro and this current administration can also be overcome, can also be overthrown. We can change this union. We can change this union if we organize, we educate, if we agitate, if we come together, we rely on each other, we organize around a common set of principles and ideas in a program like BFN does, like the CLC is doing, etc. We can win. There's nothing more powerful than the power of the city letter carrier. There's nothing more powerful than the power of the working class, of the people who make this country run. We saw that during COVID. That power needs to be exercised. And the way to do that is to organize. And the most concrete next step, October 14th, get involved. Obviously, go to BFN, the website, read the article on the strike, share it with your coworkers. But I'm just so proud to be a part of this movement. I can't tell you how much it keeps me going. It gives me something to every morning. I'm waking up thinking, all right, how can I get my licks in today? How can I contribute to this fight? You know what I mean? So thank you, Corey. Thanks, Calvin. I really appreciate it.
All right. Hey, it's the perfect example. My all-time favorite movie is Braveheart. I love that movie. And we are an episode. That is us, is that you have the establishment, you have this president, Longshanks, who's going to give you what he thinks you need just to keep y'all silent, just to shut y'all up. You're going to get this. We're going to keep taking from you as far as our dues, taking. We'll give you little pieces here and there. Y'all just sit back and shut up. And then you have this movement, and he starts looking around, you lose this fight and you lose this fight and you lose this fight. And eventually you get taken over. And that's what's happening here. It's no different. You have the establishment, Longshanks. You have them that we're going to give you what we think you need. We're not going to inform you. We're not going to educate you, nothing like that. And then here comes William Wallace, and here comes all these different groups, and they're saying, enough is enough of that. We're tired of living like we were. And so you have the Bill to Fighting NALC, the CLC, you got CARIF, you got all these other movements that are popping up. I wish the CCAs would do the same, because I think they're fixing to get screwed over. But that's the perfect example to me, is that their time is coming. The cowardice that we have been under for so long, those days are coming to an end. And so Bill to Fighting NALC will be at the forefront of that. And I'm excited to get to stand beside y'all while we do it, man. I look forward to it. Y'all
Thank you,
good?
brother. Yeah.
All right, man. Y'all have a good day.
You too,
Thank you,
Corey.
brother.
Take care.
Appreciate
All
it.
right, guys. I'll see you.
See ya.
See you.